these additives in our children's food, including plastic, are really causing the spike in diseases I am seeing as a pediatrician. Huge spikes in metabolic disease, in neurodevelopmental disease, and even cancer risks in children.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hot for Your Health, where we have conversations with innovators, change makers, fascinating people. And I'm so excited to talk to friend and colleague Manasa Mantravadi, who is not only a board-certified pediatrician, but she is a mother and a founder of a industry-changing invention. And now she's a policymaker. So, Dr. Mantravadi, thank you so much for coming back on Hot for Your Health.
Thank you for having me. It's been a while and lots has happened, so I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So, what you've done, when I first met you, there was a statement that came out that really alarmed you. When I heard about it, alarmed me, but is so in line now with the public discourse on the fifth pillar of health, which is environmental toxins. So I want to roll it all back in case I can't imagine people haven't heard of it, but why are we so concerned about plastics and the environmental and bodily harm that microplastics can do?
Yeah, so I think when we think about health, we think about food as kind of a step that a lot of people think about. But what we don't understand and didn't understand until the past, 10 years ago was really how our environment is impacting our food system. So in 2018, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with a very formal policy statement called Food Additives and Child Health. And in that statement, they really talked about the number of additives that are circulating within our food system here in the United States, including plastic as one of those, and how that we are really seeing now huge spikes in metabolic disease, in neurodevelopmental disease, and even cancer risks in children. And so what we have come to now understand is that these environmental factors are important for the planet, but they're also impacting human health. And they're doing so in kind of this silent way every day, because we eat 3 meals a day, children have 2 snacks. And so that's why I felt very compelled when I understood from my own academy that these additives in our children's food, including plastic, are really causing the spike in diseases I am seeing as a pediatrician. And so that's what really motivated me to really now focus my time and energy and effort on pediatric environmental health as it relates to children. So when we talk about plastic, kind of the very easy way to understand it is, I think a lot of people in the public really have heard now about endocrine-disrupting chemicals or hormone disruptors. And we typically think about hormones in adults. We talk about it for fertility, for menopause, all of those things. But what most people don't understand is that hormones are crucial for children's development. And if you are a parent or a grandparent, you might have remembered when your child is first born and they have that newborn screen, they're actually testing for a lot of hormone-related disease. And why that's so important is because there are interventions to kind of help. And so hormones are really important for children to undergo the normal growth and development at the right ages and stages. And these plastic chemicals are leaching into our children's food and drinks and into our bodies and disrupting this normal pattern. So these chemicals kind of look like our hormones. So that's why we call them endocrine disruptors. And so, again, important for all humans, but really, really important for children to grow and develop at the right age, stage, sequence of their lives.
Well,
So,
when you read about it or hear about it on the internet, there are plastic particles being found in tissues of the body, in breast milk. I mean, how does it physically happen? Do they just chunk off of the plastic when I put food in the microwave, or you get a hot bottle of water and it just starts leaching out? How physically does that work?
yeah, so there are two parts to what we think about in terms of plastic. So, plastic, it was kind of the greatest invention of its time because it was cheap, it lasts forever, and, it doesn't break, all of the stuff. Well, now, for all those same reasons, it's cheap, it lasts forever, it doesn't break. It's actually really harmful to the planet and to our health because it doesn't break down. It does kind of stay in your circulation. So, here's the thing there when we think about plastic, you can think about it in two categories. People will hear about plastic particles, microplastics is how the media often talks about it. And then we talk about plastic chemicals, things like bisphenol, phthalates, the chemicals that are kind of infused into plastic to make it rigid, pliable, all the things that plastic does so well. And so, really understanding from a baseline plastic particles versus plastic chemicals. And so, we can talk about chemicals first. Chemicals is the bisphenols, the phthalates, things that people have heard. And those are, again, kind of leaching into the food and the drink. Now, I talk about food, but it's also in our clothing, it's in our personal care products. So, why plastic chemicals are so dangerous is they're so innocuous, they're so silent, they're invisible, but they're everywhere, and you're exposed to it all the time. That is not meant to scare people because that's not what I want to do. I want to educate and then empower so people can make decisions. So that's how plastic chemicals work. They're kind of leaching in, and those can be from a few different things: absorptions, and inhalation. And so like it's in the air we breathe. You can absorb it through your skin and you can ingest it. Those are kind of the three ways that we kind of get the chemicals into our body. And so I really focus on foodware and kind of food systems in terms of ingestion. But there's a lot of different ways you can decrease your risk to plastic. And then the other one is microplastic or plastic particles that a lot of people hear. So we're kind of exposed to and consuming about a credit card's worth of plastic in just, I want to say, in a week.
Oh my
And
God,
yes, it's horrifying.
it's this much, people.
Yes, every
It's
single
this
week. And then,
much.
we had looked at some of the literature that is published, and if you look over the course of a lifetime, it's almost a recycling can. You know those big recycling cans? That's how much we're ingesting.
Oh my gosh,
And
does it just sit in our bodies or we excrete it? What happens to
so,
this?
so it depends, and this is where I want to provide hope too. So number one, if it's chemicals like PFAS, what we talk about forever chemicals, our body doesn't break those down as easily. What we do know, which is the helpful part, is that when you decrease your exposure to plastic, things like bisphenols, we can measure those and see those decrease in the urinary system in as little as 3 to 5 days. So there are some chemicals that are kind of forever chemicals. So that's why I really encourage patients and consumers to stay away from things that have PFAS, like that Teflon. And when you're cooking, try not to use the Teflon. Non-stick pans, try to rather use stainless steel and cast iron because it's devoid of that. So, but again, in the foodware, don't use plastic, but rather use glass or stainless steel. Those are the formal recommendations of both the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Endocrine Society, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. It is pretty well known now that plastics harm human health at any age and stage. And one of the ways to kind of decrease your exposure is to make simple changes over time. So then that way, you know, it's not quite like back in the day. Remember, we had the campaign, this is your brain on drugs. And they did that. Is like pretty immediate and visual, or here's the smoker's lung. The difference is these plastic chemicals don't happen that quickly. Like when we see it, It's more of these chronic conditions. We see population changes. So it's taken us too long to get here, but we're here now and we really understand the science and what we can do about it.
And what are some of the diseases with the chronic exposure that people can experience?
So, specifically for children, to focus on first, what we see, so for children specifically, endocrine disruption. So I mean, you probably remember this too. When I was in medical school, type 2 diabetes was purely an adult onset diabetes, and juvenile diabetes or type 1 was what children get. Unfortunately, we have a huge epidemic of, metabolic conditions, including obesity in children and type 2 diabetes. And in fact, I believe it was, let's see, since just 2020, pediatric type 2 diabetes has risen by 77%. And why that's important is I think people relate obesity and diabetes to just, oh, they're just eating junk food, or oh, they're not exercising. And of course, the quality of your food matters, of course. That being said, our food is not necessarily food. Most of what we're consuming is food products, unfortunately. And those have environmental toxins in them. Endocrine disruptors, like plastic, for example, can actually change around the hormones and how your insulin is reacting when it sees glucose. It's changing around how your fat cells are reacting. And so it's important to not discount that. I think you said fifth pillar, like the pillar that is these toxins in our environment. And so that's why we really try to eat fresh whole grains and fresh whole produce instead of the ones that are, the peaches in the syrup that's covered in the plastic, right? The fresh peach, cut it, and so those are the kind of things when we think about metabolic disease are skyrocketing in children. We're seeing children in puberty far earlier than we've ever seen them
At
before.
9, 8.5, 9.
Yes, and we even see early stages of puberty in children even younger than that,
Oh
in
my
girls.
gosh.
So that's important because, again, that is a hormonal system, that is an endocrine system. And so when you're exposed to toxins over time, these environmental exposures, it does matter. And so, and remember, children are living in a world that they are exposed more frequently than us as adults. So, for example, all the toys that are made for children, they're plastic. All the lunch boxes, they're plastic. Remember, children explore with their mouths and their hands when they're young, and so and they're smaller. So per kind of body surface area, they're absorbing more. So that's why I focus in on children, so adults can understand it's equally as bad for you. But remember, the children are exposed more frequently, exposed more per body weight, and are just in circumstances where they can't control what's going in their body, whether that is school lunch or the gift that they receive that's a plastic toy. Like, they're not in charge of those decisions. So it's my job to kind of educate the adults in the room on these choices that they're making for the children in their lives.
Well, and in trying, I'm going through this all in my mind. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed because even when we try to do the best thing and we're only eating, and this is not always the case, obviously, but fresh green leafy things or whole proteins, I'm thinking, I've often said that frozen vegetables are just as good as the fresh ones, better than the canned ones. They're all in plastic. So you try to do the right thing. Or I'm thinking of all the children I know personally, and I did this. I breastfed for a year. I pumped into a plastic bag, and then I put it into a plastic bottle. What the what? I'm trying to do my best by lugging a pump everywhere, and then I store it in plastic. I mean, can become overwhelming, even if you're trying the best you can.
That's right. And what I want people to understand is this is an opportunity to get educated and make simple choices that you can control. We can't control the industry, like the entire food industry, right? We can't control their packaging. Now, we can control some of the choices we make. So, for example, I too buy frozen vegetables because honestly, in terms of their nutritional value, tend to have higher nutritional value. And for cost purposes, especially with a family of five, for me, we're vegetarian, we consume a lot of vegetables. And so take everything that we're talking about today with a grain of salt because no one in 2025 and beyond is living in a plastic free world. It's just not possible.
All right,
What
I'm
we
going to
can
be
do
not
is
beat
make
myself up.
exactly. Everyone breathe.
Okay, gotcha.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
We can make just kind of choices that are best for your family at that time to decrease your exposure. The goal is not to eliminate. That's not going to happen. Of course, if live, maybe move to an island somewhere that's very remote, source your own food, and perhaps, but just don't get overwhelmed by the elimination, but rather just put in your mind reduction.
I got that. So we're going to do what we can. We're going to take control of what we can take control of. Because I get it. It could be totally overwhelming. And then people are like, I can't change it. I'm just going to go. You know what? I'm seem to be surviving. But I don't think that's the point. So
Right.
you were so serious about this that in 2019 you started a company using what you knew from childhood. And when I met you and heard what you were doing, I thought back to my own childhood. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. I had these big pink cups that were made out of some kind of metal. So tell us, I want to get to the simple, controllable things that we can do as lovers of children or even adults. But tell us about the solution that you created with Ahimsa Health.
Yes. So we have a line of stainless steel dishware for children. Quite honestly, adults too, because I'll talk about why. But the American Academy of Pediatrics formally, kind of in 2018, said, hey, parents, here's what we know about plastic. It's harmful to children's health. Try to reduce your use of plastic. So, number one, try not to use it if you can. Try to use glass or stainless steel instead. And number two, if you are going to use plastic, please don't put it in the dishwasher and expose it to heat because that increases the amount and intensity of which those chemicals leach. So those were kind of the tenets. And my girlfriends and I, who are all pediatricians, were on a text message chain. And one of my friends who's a neonatologist, she said, ladies, have you seen this policy statement? What are you going to do with all your plastic dishes? And turns out in India and in many parts of the world, they're already using steel. They're already using glass. And you just, also said it. We used to use glass. And so it was kind of my roots from India where if you have an Indian friend or grew up with an Indian friend, you might remember when you've gone to their homes, they had these metal glasses and metal plates, and that's just because that's kind of part of our culture. It is the material of choice for tableware. So what I knew as a pediatrician in terms of really clinical science and kind of application of medicine with my roots from India, I thought, what in the world? We are supposed to make these recommendations to parents to avoid plastic, use glass or stainless steel. But to your point, everything out there is made of plastic. And so I felt the need to really create a solution so that when pediatricians were recommending glass or stainless steel, that a parent could go online and into stores and have a solution that was backed by modern day science. And I would say ancient wisdom, modern day science. And so I launched a line called Ahimsa. It's a Sanskrit word meaning avoiding harm. So it's the first oath that we took as physicians. It's the oath I took as a mom. And it's a line of stainless steel dishware for children and adults. And we really talk about it for families now. And so it's really designed to help parents and families use the proper material, but also instill healthy eating habits. So our plates, our balanced bite plates, we really teach you that actually half your plate is supposed to be fruit and vegetables and then whole grains and then a small amount of protein. So it's really my way of infusing my pediatric clinical knowledge to design tools for families at mealtime to make mealtime more mindful and easier to kind of execute and not feel so overwhelmed by all the information out there.
So, in our conversation so far, the simple things that can be changed in the house are glass and stainless steel cookware or dishes, but even down to, because of the plastic chemicals, the kind of pans that we use, right? But I'm acutely aware, because I was reading it the other day, that even when I go out to have a coffee, even if it's in a paper cup, the inside is lined with plastic and I'm putting boiling hot stuff in it. And so it is a little bit everywhere, isn't it?
It's everywhere, and that's why I really try to say, listen, when you are making these decisions, start with what you're most passionate about. So for me, it was in the kitchen because we avidly, like we cook every day. It's a part of my upbringing. It was something that was important to me. So I started in the kitchen. And so when you think about your kitchen, there's a few different things that are pretty easy to change out to, again, not eliminate, but to decrease. So cookware. So think about, okay, how am I cooking my food? So take out the Teflon, take out any of those materials like the black plastic that you're cooking with, and swap them out to glass, stainless steel, and cast iron. So for my purposes, I cook with cast iron and stainless steel. Then we think about foodware. What are the plates? What are the cups? What are the storage? Everyone used to have Tupperware, those plastic Tupperware. You can switch those out. That was the number one thing I did. Of course, I serve out of Ahimsa steel for my children and myself, but I use glass containers and stainless steel containers to store kind of my meal prep and my food. And even something as simple as a sponge, like you can switch that out to one of these bamboo fibers. Um, and so it doesn't, these small changes can make a big impact when you start to do a little bit. And so that's my biggest suggestion. Go to where you're most focused on and make small little changes. And over time, you'll start to see, like, okay, I'm doing it over time. Again, even just opening up your windows in your kitchen and wiping off your counters and dusting, there are plastic chemicals even in that air. Just by doing that, you are decreasing your exposure. So it can feel overwhelming, but I want people to feel empowered.
When you summarize it like that, it's only 5 or 6 things to start with.
Yes.
Not so hard. Yeah.
Correct, correct. And I have a friend who is in the fashion industry. So her journey to kind of this exposure to plastic and additives was in clothing, right? And so she chooses kind of textiles and clothing that are devoid of bisphenols and phthalates. Somebody else might really care about their personal care products. So you might start your journey there. And then what you'll see is as you educate yourself, you'll start to see you can make these little changes across your life and it compounds. There's like a compound effect that happens.
Yeah, so you tackle the kitchen and then you can choose bamboo clothes, for instance, instead of polyester type things. That makes sense. But we were talking earlier, and you're interested not only in the hardware of what's going on, but actually the substance of food. And I was sharing with you, my youngest child has gone to a variety of schools. She's gone to big public schools. She's gone to really small private schools. The problem of school lunch is ubiquitous.
Oh, it is. It is my number one priority at the moment because when I launched this company, as you know, when we treat patients across the spectrum of the country. And so while our consumer products are available online and there's a lot of families using it, and I'm so honored and happy that we're making a lot of changes at the American family dining table. I also know that many children, including many of my patients, are actually getting their food from school lunch. So, so I decided it was really important for me to meet children where they were. So some of the most underserved children are getting all of their meals from school lunch. And so, because often it's breakfast, lunch, and even snack. And so, like an after school snack. And why that's so important is most of what is served in school lunch, as it is today, unfortunately, is made of single use disposable plastic packaged, ultra processed food. And listen, I have met, so we have an entire line for schools, and we're in hundreds of schools, stainless steel trays. I think that everyone can think about that plastic tray from school. It's still in circulation, guys. It's still there, and it's still being washed every day in heat where exactly. And so our goal now from Ahimsa is to really ensure that both families and schools are aware of the American Academy of Pediatrics policy statement and aware of solutions to make, big changes when everyone does it at once. And so when we think about the school lunch system, it's such an opportunity. I always say school lunch reform is healthcare reform, because when we can attack the kind of substance of school lunch, right? So fresh whole foods, scratch cooking, reusable steel, these are all things that our taxpayer dollars are going to. We really should be investing here to then not have to pay again for that child to be on metformin for their type 2 diabetes. That is a preventable food related disease. And so we really spend a lot of time now, because Ahimsa to me is not a product. It is truly a pediatric mission to change the outcomes for children by going upstream, right? The family dining table, the school lunch table, and really start to help people understand the food that we're serving our children and what we are serving that food on is really taken seriously, and it's much cheaper to invest there than to then treat those diseases. So that's where we are in terms of school lunch. We have if any family is interested, you can go to ahimsaschools.com and learn about our products for schools. We always pair everything with not just product, but with curriculums. That way we're teaching children, families, schools about healthier, more sustainable choices around mealtime.
Well, I love that so much because if you were just about dishes, the story would stop there. An entire generation, I mean, because you're really out to change generations of people in the same way that my 17-year-old, bless her heart, knows a lot about menopause, perimenopause, and aging with power. She can name it all. But what you're out to do is that every child coming up will turn into adults, and maybe in 2 or 3 generations, this will be a solved problem because of what you're doing. So I have 3 grandchildren. I have a almost 3-year-old. He's about to turn 3. I know, and I got him and my newest grandchild Ahimsa products, and I need to get my granddaughter some pink Ahimsa products. But as I'm talking to them, because the other day I taught my 3-year-old son, my grandson, the word linebacker, because his dad played football and was a linebacker. In that kind of spirit, what should I be telling my littles? What can I tell my littles? Because I'm a grandmother now, right? My children are grown. What do I need to start young with?
So I think there are a few tenants that we use in my house that I'm starting to really see the ROI. So for example, I always say in pediatrics, why I went into to be a pediatrician is because we can really impact these human beings at such a young age for such a long-term gain, right? So the things that we do today. And so the things that I've been investing is mealtime for children. So I would say, number one, really teach children that food is fuel. And so if you can start just simply, even for a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, a 12-year-old, helping them realize that food is a fuel for our body, and the quality of that fuel helps us to play better, to think better in school, to feel better. And so then you're not overwhelming them with, oh, it's ultra processed and then it's this and that. It's too much for a child. But if they can just, as a simple foundational tenet for adults alike, food is fuel for our body. And the better that fuel is, the better that our body and our mind can work. So that's number one, because when you start to do that at a young age, they really do get it, and the ROI on this tenant for me is my children went for a school trip. They went away for 2 nights and, they're vegetarian. They didn't have a whole lot of options. They had some French fries and, each of them independently, I have boy-girl twins, called me on the way home from a teacher's cell phone and said, Mom, I know I have soccer practice and all we've eaten is French fries and hasn't really been that great. I think my body needs something. Can you make me a smoothie, a green smoothie before practice? And I was like, oh, yes, it's working. But I think that it takes a while. It takes a while for you to really understand that this investment in your child's health really is so important. And then they will start to feel that food is fuel because you have implemented that kind of learning. And then I think the other thing is really thinking through like varieties of food and really helping them understand like our body needs all these different things as part of that food is fuel conversation. The number two thing for your grandchild would be that when we think about food, think about it not just for our health, but for our planet. And kids love, like they can see the outdoors. They have the best connection to the planet more than we do. And so simple little teachings on, oh, you know what? We don't need to use that thing for 15 minutes and throw it away. Let's reuse something. So the concept of reuse, the concept of, oh, you could fill up your plate and then when you're done with it, you can fill it up again and trust your body and not throw away all that food into the landfill. Those little things, again, will add up over time for them to be really good stewards of the planet when you teach it to them that way. And the very last one I would say is connection at mealtime. So making sure that you're connecting with your grandkid at, a dining table without the use of digital, there's no phones, there's no TVs. Mealtime is, it's proven that if you eat together as a family 3 or more times a week, there are actual health outcomes that are better for children. And so think about that. That's not some fancy thing that you could sit on the floor for all I care. It doesn't matter. It just means that spending time together around a shared meal allows children to have great role modeling. They're trying and exposing food. They're connecting with you and learning. And so all of those things, I would say those are the 3 things that I would instill at a very young age.
I love that. And whether it's your own children, your grandchildren, the children in the neighborhood, I mean, these are such, I came to this conversation literally a little bit like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But now I feel calmer because you've given us 5 or 6 things to do starting in the kitchen. You've given us really sound things to do with our food supply and now even advice for the littles who are now entering my life again. So it's so great. And I'm actually, having seen you do this since you had just started Ahimsa when we met and we talked about it. Yeah, I'm so happy for you and so proud that it's not just a product, but it's a philosophy and a paradigm change. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. And again, I just want everyone to feel educated and empowered, and just small changes make a big difference. So you can do it. Anyone can do it. I promise.
We can. So thank you so much, Dr. Mantravadi. And we are going to link to Ahimsa and all the things you do. So thanks for your time and patience today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Hot for Your Health, where we bring you conversations from the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture. You can find links from today's show and connect with me at drvondawright.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.